So hi, would you introduce yourself to our class, please?
I'm Heidi Rogers, and I'm the Executive Director for the Northwest Council for Computers and Education.
Would you tell us your story? How'd you get started?
I guess I would first say I got started by probably being the social chairman of my sorority. That's when I started planning. I didn't know it was going to be a profession because I ended up receiving a doctorate in educational technology from Oklahoma State University in 1990 and moved to northern Idaho then.
Well, that's a great career to have these days,
Yeah.
right ahead of the curve. So tell us more about that.
I became very involved in all my professional organizations, and I would encourage anyone to become involved in their professional organizations as well as their community. I do a lot of volunteer work for the community, from hospice to the school district foundation to the chamber, and so I kind of fell into the position that I have now. By meaning, they were looking for, I was a former president of the organization, NCCE, and former president of another, the International Society for Technology and Education. And what happened was, NCCE was looking for a executive director, the first executive director, and I took on the task. So it's been a joy ever since.
Well, that's fascinating because it's a different perspective than a lot of the people we've interviewed in terms of their relationship with event planning. Are there grants involved in this?
Our organization right now, I would say grant-wise, we were more successful in the early 2000s, not right now. There's not a lot of grant money, but we've been real successful in getting contracts. We have a large contract with Microsoft and another one with the Library of Congress to do training in the Northwest.
And about how much they contribute to your organization, if you don't mind letting us know that.
About a couple $100,000 each organization does.
So this is a big scale.
That we do those things outside of our conference. Our conference, though, is I run about $1 million budget.
That's amazing.
And we're fortunate that our organization has a sizable endowment as well.
Could you explain that?
I would say we have a reserve, which every organization, I strongly encourage you to have a strong reserve, because especially in the economic times that we're facing now. So we have that financially, we have a strong financial plan to manage that money, as well as a purpose what we're using the money for.
Could you give us a broad overview of NCCE?
NCCE is about 5,000 members. Our mission is to promote educational technology for the K-12 education system. So we try to teach teachers, administrators, and IT folks how to integrate technology into the classroom to make a difference. Our focus area is Washington, Oregon, Montana, and Idaho. And we're 41 years old.
So the conference itself, how do you go about planning for that?
The conference itself takes over a year to plan. We focus the conference in the Northwest, and we either have it in Portland or Seattle. We plan a year out. I have three full-time employees, a program director, an executive assistant, and a marketing director. We contract out our registration and our exhibit hall with actually the University of Oregon does that for us. As well as we contract out our graphic artists, our creative graphic artists.
So that's interesting. We haven't talked to anybody yet who actually contracts out services. So could you talk to us a little bit about how that works?
Well, you just have to find the right person, and then you hire them. I mean, our graphic artist is an hourly fee. Our exhibit hall, we take a percent. So that's how that works.
So what are the biggest challenges that you face in doing the work that you do?
Well, it seems like, to me, the biggest challenge is getting the word out. In these economic hard times, you don't know what's going to happen. So it's kind of the fear of the unknown.
When you talk about getting the word out, what methods do you use for marketing?
We've done everything. We've done print. We do a lot of postcards because they're cheaper to send. We print about 30,000 advanced programs that we mail out to the Northwest. We try to do the social media the best we can.
Social media, how do you use social media?
Well, everybody has Twitter, Facebook, wikis, YouTube, all of those things we try to actively support that.
Well, when you say that, though, talk about the specifics. How do you do this? I mean, people say they use social networking, but what are the details?
We're not good at it. It's hard. It is very hard, because I think one of the problems with social media is you can be social, but unless somebody's going to be social with you, it's hard to get the word out. We just did a campaign we called it 10 Days of Giving, where we work with our corporate sponsors to give out a prize the 10 days before Christmas. And that gets a lot, and we do it all through social media, so that gets a lot out. We work with for our conference, we're working with one corporation that we're going to do a $18,000 classroom makeover. And you have to be on our social media to win that prize. So it's a nice prize.
So you're using an incentive to
incentives. Prizes work. Prizes work.
I've heard that you give prizes at your conference. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We give prizes a variety of ways. One, we do things, we want people to come to the newcomer session. We want people to come to volunteer or get prizes. We give prizes at the end of the conference for people visiting the exhibit hall and things like that.
I understand you're really good at networking. So can you describe the relationship building that you think is important in this business?
I think especially in the event planning business, it is networking and respecting each other for their strengths. I believe, volunteering, I love volunteering in our community. I think that helps. And I think being part of your professional organization, I think that's a strength.
Part of what you've talked about is being in the right place at the right time. So how do you connect the job opportunities and the relationship and network building together?
I guess what I would tell you is that always, especially in my industry, you might have one corporate representative work for one company, and all of a sudden he's no longer with that company, and they'll come back to you in another company if you've had a good relationship. I've been known to jump on a plane to go meet with somebody just because I thought it was beneficial, would be a win-win for our organization, and I wanted to be face-to-face with them.
So your reputation is important.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think being honest.
What we're doing is we're trying to give real-world experiences to our students is through the interview process, which is difficult. So if you could think of what makes your organization and you successful, can you think about things that you would, or suggestions that you could give students?
I think being honest and respecting each other. I think that's key.
And being in the right place at the right time.
Being at the right place at the right time.
Have you learned any hard lessons?
Oh, I've learned hard lessons. I mean, there's things you always learn by your mistakes, or things you didn't know. I laugh when I remember one Valentine I got a email from a hotelier that said, why isn't anybody staying at your hotel? And I said, well, we don't have a contract with you. Well, the organization did. It's just the event planner had signed that contract probably 5 years before I was even working with the organization.
Being a professional in this business is what I think some of our students would strive to be. So in a smaller community, there are more limited opportunities. What about nationally and internationally? Do you see opportunities for students there?
I am a big promoter of being involved, and I've been fortunate enough to be part of PCMA, the Professional Convention Meeting Planners Association. They have meetings in the Northwest, as well as they have a national organization too, and I try to attend that meeting every year.
Do you have that professional certification?
I do not have the professional.
What is the advantage of having the certification?
I think it's credibility.
Because that's one of the things our students have to do is to research about professional certifications and find out what they are and how they apply. I understand that you have a professional event planning company that you contract with, and those folks have their certification?
They do. Just because we don't have enough, we need support also during our crunch time, and so we contract out with 2 individuals that are professional meeting planners, and they assist us in doing some planning.
So when you see that little certification at the end of their company name, then what does that do for you?
They've been in the business, and they've been trained, and they've had the experience and education to validate their word.
So do you think this is a profession or an area of work that you'd recommend?
Oh, and I think it's so fun. The other is the people that you interact with aren't just, it's everybody from the convention center folks to every hotel, to restaurant people, to people who like to have decorating people, and people who like to have just a good time and have big parties.
I'm glad you brought up the fun part, because the first half of the class was about conference and meeting and convention planning, which is fine. And the second half of the class is about special events, which I would put your organization into a combination of special events as well. And that is the fun part. So talk to me a little bit more about some of the special event parts of your conference. Do you do something besides meet?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one event planner told me once, you got to make your entrance and your exit very meaningful. And we try to always get into a theme. And it could be a pirate theme, it could be a Western theme, it could be a magic theme. We've had, of course, in Seattle, we had a coffee theme. But we have to, and we live by the theme. And, you can have good meetings and good content, but it's just as easy to have fun.
So we talked about themes in another interview where the tying of everything together, and without a theme, it's just quite disjointed, is it not?
Yeah, it is. Or it's real sterile.
So it helps with your marketing also.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it helps with the marketing, especially.
So your first impression and your last impression of your conference is critical for the reputation. Do you get feedback? Do you ask for feedback?
We always do an evaluation.
And can you talk to us about your evaluation process?
One of the things is evaluation is hard. One is if we do it at the conference, again, we always give a prize. I mean, it's incentive. We do it online now, and the person who wins gets to come back to the conference for free next year.
When you say you do it online, how do you
we do a monkey survey monkey.
Oh, survey monkey.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting that you do that. So the feedback, when you get it from your conference attendees, then you look at it and decide what you're going to do differently?
Yeah, and you have to, I guess probably my education background, you have to also look at those things. I mean, I can't change the price of a latte. I will never be able to do that at the conference. But there's some things that it would be best if you could get everybody to send in their feedback, because I think so many people are positive, and the negative ones are more likely to fill it out.
That's true.
But when you get a letter, I got a letter last spring from from a school district in Helena, Montana, and they are so far from our conference. But it was they sent a token gift and a thank you note, and so then you're
making an impact.
Right.
We talk a lot about contingency planning and planning for the unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us some insights or some stories about some things that were unexpected in your conferences that you may not have planned for?
There's always a solution. There's always a solution. There's always a solution. Don't panic. For our conference, the hardest is the technology, because we're going into a convention center, setting up 200 computers within 24 hours and trying to get them on the internet. Sometimes the bandwidth at the convention centers aren't what we need, and it's frustrating. Personally, I think that the internet now should just be like toilet paper. We get it in all of our conventions and hotels. I mean, it should be a staple. I mean, we've all got to be connected.
That would make life easier, would it not?
Well, think about it. I mean,
one of the projects, I guess, not one, the class has to do 2 projects. And part of the frustration I think our students may have going into these projects is understanding how to go about planning, the components of planning a large conference. Could you walk us through how you how you actually do the hands-on planning?
Well, it starts with your contracts and your program. I mean, how many rooms you're going to use, and how many meeting spaces, and then how many attendees, and then how many hotel rooms you might need.
So the number of attendees.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I make most decisions based on a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm big into trying to look at patterns and data and plan that way.
So you use Excel?
All the time.
And how do you stay on track with that? I mean, if you have an Excel spreadsheet, then what do you do with it from there? Because one of the things the students have to do is they have to come up with an organizational method.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about check sheets, and it's easy to talk about, but going from the theory to the actual application is where we're trying to get in for some of our students to get the actual tools to work with. So can you describe your spreadsheet?
I work a lot within a budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I plan everything based on a budget. And so I kind of follow that budget. And the trick about a budget, and I have data for the last 10 years on how many people registered for our conference at each checkpoint. So then I can make adjustments as we go farther.
What have you not been able to do in your conferences that you would like to do in the future?
I think my hardest challenge at the convention centers right now is the internet. And having enough bandwidth, having enough, wireless opportunities for all the attendees to use.
What do you see is on the horizon for education and technology?
Well, what's interesting is see our event, say we bring in 200 computers, but now everybody else is bringing in their own phone that they can hook up to the wireless network as well as their iPad. And so it's really saturating the network. And so that's going to be a big challenge.
Just capacity.
Capacity.
So that's interesting. The number of people that you see coming to your conference in the future, do you think it's going to continue to build, or do you think that there's an impact on attendance by what's going on in the economy?
I think the economy's made a big difference. What we've done, and one of the hardest decisions I had to personally give to our board is that we no longer have our conference in Spokane. And the issue is that if the largest school district in the area was under financial constraints, then it really impacted our conference. So I did some data analysis, and we only go now to Portland and Seattle. And so instead of doing a 3-year rotation, Portland, Seattle, and Spokane, we do a 2-year rotation between Portland and Seattle. And I think we've been fortunate.
And that's important to take into consideration with your overall organization and the impact that you get on a cost-benefit basis.
Yeah.
Very good. So I understand that you've worked with interns before, and there's a possibility that we'll have students interested in internships. Can you describe how you actually supervised an intern and how that integrated into your organization?
Well, I think shadowing. I had the opportunity to have an intern 2 summers ago, just on a volunteer basis, and the intern was, excited and willing to learn, and we just would allow her to mentor, to go to different things. We also had the intern visit different organizations in the community. And, one time she got to go to Seattle with us and do some planning with us, so it was fun.
And so that gave her a little bit of actual hands-on experience.
Oh, yeah.
And we're hoping to interview her as well.
Good.
So that will be part of our class. So to wrap up, one more question. What insights or advice would you give our students, just top of the mind suggestions?
I think
tips?
there's always a solution to every problem. Don't
That's
panic.
Good advice. That's very